Hello, I'm Stephen. I'm almost 30 years old, and 2 days ago I had smile laser eye surgery at the London Vision Clinic. So, before I had my surgery, before I even booked the consultations, I spent a lot of my time looking up essentially videos like this one where people account exactly what their experience of the surgery was and, any side effects they've had and sort of the entire process. And there were some knowledge gaps that I found in the process of looking up these videos, and I wanted to create a video to fill in those knowledge gaps and just to kind of like add to the community, to kind of give my experience back to the collective so that there's, a more full range of experiences out there. This video is going to be full of chapters. I've tried to separate it into kind of reasonable like segments that people would be interested in. So if there's a certain part of the journey that you're interested in, feel free to skip ahead. As I've mentioned, I'm only 2 days post-surgery. So if you want to hear kind of what my experience is in about a month's time or 6 months time or a year's time, please subscribe and I will post a video at those times. At the moment, just like super high level intro, my vision's great. I've had very few side effects, and my experience of the surgery has been amazing. But I will go into all the details in each section, so please stay tuned. Oh, and also this is not an ad. I wasn't paid by London Vision Clinic. I paid for the surgery myself. They don't know that I'm going to do this video, so this is not an ad. This is not a sponsorship. This is a fully self-funded surgery, and I'm just giving my experience. Why laser eye surgery? So I'm almost 30 years old, and I have been wearing glasses full time since I was probably like 10 years old. Technically, I've been wearing glasses since before then, but I only started wearing them full time when I hit secondary school. I had to wear them in kind of classrooms from the age of about 8 years old, but almost consistently since that point, I've never really enjoyed wearing glasses. So I spent most of my teenage years wearing contact lenses because I needed to wear them full time. I was very short-sighted. And eventually I got to the point where I was wearing contacts every single day. And around the time I went to university, that sort of changed because I began wearing contact lenses less often and I started wearing glasses more often. And eventually, by the time I was in my 20s, I was sort of wearing glasses full time, but I've never really got rid of this idea that I wanted to do laser eye surgery. So I've spent years kind of like umming and ahhing about it, but never really being both in a position financially or kind of being secure enough in my prescription staying the same that I was happy to do so. It wasn't really until the last few years, kind of the late 20s, where I started taking it a lot more seriously. And in doing so, I started researching videos like this, and there's a lot of experiences out there which are good, but there's also a lot where people have had very serious negative side effects. And so based on that, I wanted to make sure that there's as much information out there for the people who are tempted to do the surgery and they understand the risks involved. So let's talk about the laser eye surgery types. Types of laser eye surgery. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a surgeon. I do not touch eyes as part of my job. This is just a layman's understanding of the different types of surgery. Obviously take this with a pinch of salt, but I'm pretty confident that my interpretations of these are fairly accurate. But obviously do your own research. Look into these things yourself. From my understanding, the first form of laser eye surgery that existed was something called PRK, which stands for photorefractive keratectomy. Probably going to pronounce a lot of these words wrong, so I apologize in advance. But this was the first type made publicly available and the first surgery was in 1987. And essentially how the surgery works, based on my layman's understanding, is they essentially swipe off, they kind of like remove the outer layer of the eye, which is called the corneal epithelium. And that's removed, which allows them to access the stroma, which is kind of the layer underneath the epithelium. And the stroma can be reshaped using an excimer laser into the shape that will correct your vision's problems. So, if you are short-sighted, you have myopia, or you're long-sighted, you have hyperopia. Or if you have astigmatism, they can zap the eye and essentially vaporize some of the material to fix the refractive problems. Once they've done this correction surgery, they add a lens to the eye, which stays there for about a week to allow the outer layer to heal naturally. So that was the first type that existed. And very shortly after that, people began trying other types. So there is a former PRK, which is called LASIK with an E. And the main difference between PRK and LASIK is that in LASIK, they don't just remove the top layer, they try to push it back afterwards. And from what I've gathered, this isn't actually that commonly used, mainly because of LASIK. So LASIK with an I stands for Laser Assisted In Situ Keratomileusis. I don't know how to say it. LASIK. And like, this is the most common form of laser eye surgery. Most people that you've heard of having laser eye surgery have had LASIK. The idea is, instead of trying to let the eye heal the outer layer on its own, instead you laser a flap using a femtosecond laser. So you do a femtosecond laser flap. The flap is peeled off. The same reshaping with the eczema laser occurs. And then the flap is relaid back on top of the cornea. And so the idea of this surgery was you can reduce recovery time to a couple of days because the eye doesn't need to fully heal. All that needs to happen is the outer layer has the flap positioned back into the same spot and it heals the flap. You know, the circle that's been drawn in the laser is healed. One of the ways a surgeon will try to ensure that the flap is put in the correct position is they draw on the eye. So they draw on the eye with purple markers so that once they have to reapply the flap, they can use like a microscope to check that the drawing marks are perfectly aligned. But, you know, essentially you've created a flap in the eye's been peeled back, you've been lasered and the flap's been replaced in, and you should heal within a few days. The main pro of LASIK, even now with other types, is the recovery time. It's very, very fast recovery because as soon as the flap's put back in place, your vision is basically corrected and you're just waiting for that outer layer to heal. Let's talk about the type that I had. So I had SMILE, which stands for Small Incision Lenticle Extraction Surgery. It's less common than LASIK, but I would say it's probably growing in popularity. The surgery is fairly new. So the first type of the surgery was performed in 2007. So that's less than 20 years old. In PRK and LASIK, the reshaping is done using an eczema laser, which vaporizes material in the cornea. This is why you'll hear people say they can smell burning when they have laser eye surgery. In SMILE, there is no eczema laser. There is only the femtosecond laser. And it's quite an interesting procedure. The way that it works is the femtosecond laser essentially lasers into your eye a lenticule, which is kind of like a lens-shaped piece of the middle of the cornea. So it's not the edge of the cornea, it's the middle. They try and laser a piece in the middle, and then they laser incision points on both sides of your eye, 2 little incisions, and the surgeon will then manually loosen that piece that was lasered and pull it out of your eye. Often this is kind of referred to as keyhole LASIK because instead of creating a flap, you create 2 small incisions, one for you to loosen the lenticule inside the cornea and one for you to pull the lenticule out of the cornea. Okay, so yeah, what's the difference? You know, I've said what they are. What's the difference between these types? Is there any reasons why someone would pick one or the other? So here's a little table that I've prepared. This is based on my understanding and a conversation with ChatGPT about the options. As you can see, PRK treats pretty much every type of eye problem: myopia, hyperopia, and astigmatism, so short-sighted, long-sighted, and astigmatism. The same goes for LASIK. SMILE usually doesn't treat hyperopia, so if you're long-sighted, SMILE probably isn't appropriate for you. It can only treat short-sighted astigmatism. It's also worth noting that SMILE often has a smaller range of treated prescriptions, but I will say that the range that you'll see online isn't necessarily proof that they won't treat your prescription. Online, you might see they only treats up to a certain prescription. I would always take that with a grain of salt because realistically, your eye isn't the same as someone else's eye, and it may be that you're suitable despite having a similar prescription to someone who isn't suitable. So always check with your surgeon and your clinic to see if you're suitable for each of these types. But generally speaking, PRK, I think, is the most suitable for people, but it has the longest recovery time and like medium risk for things like dry eye and neuropathic pain and visual disturbances. LASIK is the fastest recovery. It usually treats most types of eye refractive problems, but there's a much higher risk of dry eye and neuropathic pain. And you'll see that if you look online, there's a lot of people with LASIK who complain about having corneal neuralgia. And honestly, it's probably the thing that if you're thinking about taking any form of laser eye surgery, you should be aware that this is the most scary risk, I would say, that you could have. And then there's smile, which is a bit more new. It takes a little bit longer to recover, not as long as PRK, but because you're taking a piece out of the middle of the cornea, there's swelling which occurs, and that takes a few more days to die down. But there's less dry eye, there's less visual disturbances, there's less risk for nerve pain, essentially. So why did I choose smile? I think, based on what I've just shown you, it's pretty simple to see why I picked smile. I really didn't want to go with LASIK. I think if it came to it and I could only get LASIK, I would definitely consider LASIK pretty heavily. And I know lots of people who've had a lot of success with LASIK, but if you look online, most of the procedures that have a lot of people yelling about them usually are LASIK. And I won't say that smile doesn't have those risks as well. I'm pretty sure Jessica Starr, the famous, I think she was like a news presenter, and she had smile surgery. She got the neuropathic pain problem that you can get from laser surgeries, and it impacted her life so severely that she's no longer with us. But you may also have your life completely changed forever and have vision that you've never had before, which is crazy. And there's obviously a scale here to weigh up. But given the options, smile seems like the lowest risk for the highest rewards, but you have to find a good surgeon and someone who knows what they're doing. Which leads nicely on to, why did I choose London Vision Clinic? And the answer to that is, I've done a lot of research, I've checked a lot of people's experiences, and I live in London. So for me, it was a no-brainer because this clinic specifically has a surgeon who was involved in the creation of the smile procedure. This clinic is kind of renowned for treating people who have been turned away from other clinics. Based on that kind of set my bar quite high. I checked out a lot of other people's experiences, like the one you're watching, and it's pretty clear that the way that they conduct themselves is much more professional and much less concerning than some of the other, let's say, high street options that are available. One of the factors which I think is really important is the consultation itself isn't free. And obviously that means you have to make a commitment before you book the consultation. You have to make a commitment to, do I want to pay £500 to go and get a consultation? And it's difficult because that may look like, you're kind of committing a lot before you go to the consultation, and you are. But if they say that you're not eligible, which I think from them is actually quite unlikely, but if they say you aren't eligible, you get that fully refunded. But if you do decide to go ahead, the £500 is used towards the laser eye surgery. Otherwise, you get refunded half of that £500, so only £250 is taken for the cost of the consultation. And I think when you think about the work that's involved in verifying that your eyes are the correct, your eyes are healthy and they are appropriate for laser eye surgery, I would rather be paying professionals to do that check than I would go to a free consultation and be pressured heavily into signing on the dotted line to do the surgery. One thing that I will say is very nice about London Vision Clinic is throughout the whole process, they generally aren't pushy. I would say that at no point I felt pressured into doing anything. In fact, at some points, I kind of had to speed up the process because I wanted things to happen on certain days, and usually they want you to wait a bit longer. I really do believe if you're thinking of doing laser eye surgery, London Vision Clinic probably is the place that you should be checking out, at least going for a consultation and seeing if they think that you are suitable for the surgery. The first step of the process with London Vision Clinic is to basically go to their website, read up all of their documentation, and fill in a form for them to contact you. And I did this a long time ago. I kind of chickened out. I missed the phone call. They left a message, they sent an email, and I just chickened out. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't going to do it for a long time. And recently they sent an email saying that they had a promotion on where if you got the surgery before the end of the year, you'd have £1,000 off the surgery. And the timing was really appropriate because I'd been considering getting the surgery, like for the first time in a long time. I was really thinking about it. And then this email comes through and I'm like, the stars are aligned, let's fucking go. Yeah, so the first thing's is really you go to the website. The website's great. I'd recommend reading through all of the stuff they have on there. And then you fill in the form that says, hey, contact me, I'm interested in the surgery. That's basically it. And so once you've requested a call from a member of their team, within a couple of days, you will be called by someone. So I was called by a member of their team named Kate. She is the patient care coordinator who I had for me. I'm not sure if there are multiple, but Kate was mine. And during the call, she asked for my current prescription. So I will recommend, if you're going to do this process, go and get your prescription from your opticians So just give them a call. They have to give it to you legally. So if you call them up and say, hey, can you email me my prescription? They're going to do it. They're going to email it to you. And it will be useful because in that pre-consultation call that you'll have with a patient coordinator, if you have your prescription available, they basically will be able to give you some super high level guidance on what you're likely to be eligible for and the process that you're likely to be following. And so I did that, had the call with her, told her my prescription. She said, based on that, I'm likely eligible for all of the types, so PRK, LASIK, or Smile. That kind of surprised me because my prescription is in my left eye, it was minus 5.5 short-sightedness, but my right eye was minus 4.25 short-sightedness and minus 3.25 astigmatism. So the astigmatism was very, very high in my right eye. And based on what I had read online, it was unlikely that I was going to be able to have Smile. So I had just kind of been putting this off, thinking, hey, I can't do the form I want to do. Like, I'm not going to be able to do it. This was the only place that I knew would be likely to actually give me the Smile procedure out of anywhere. What I read online is -3 was the maximum people would be willing to do for Smile for astigmatism. But when I called her up, she says they've done up to -6. Like, you can use the machine up to -6 as long as the other factors in your eyes are suitable. So she said, yeah, even though you've got what's called a high profile right eye, which it means it's a little bit more expensive to treat too, even though you have a high profile right eye, you probably are a suitable candidate for Smile, but I can't say on the phone because you need to do the consultation and there may be something that crops up that means you're not a suitable candidate for that one, but you might be for a different surgery. So I spent about half an hour basically asking her all sorts of questions. I think I asked her, I don't know, I asked her an insane amount of questions on the phone. Even though I'd been researching the surgery for so long, you just kind of want to hear it from someone who, you know, is close to actually what happens on the ground. She explained, like, you know, everything to me. She answered all my questions. And she also told me the process was going to be, don't wear contact lenses for a couple of weeks. That was fine for me. The last time I'd wore them was Halloween, and that was like 3 weeks before the call. She said the in-person consultation will take about 3 hours and that I shouldn't be driving to the consultation because they will put dilating drops in my eyes and my vision might not be very good after the consultation, and that the consultation will do loads of tests on my eyes basically to determine the suitability for the different types of surgery. After that, assuming I wanted to go ahead, there would be a consultation with the surgeon who would perform the surgery where I can ask even more questions and determine the risks for me and what they think is appropriate based on my lifestyle and all those other things. Then there would be a surgery and then a 24-hour after the surgery consultation to check, hey, how your eye's doing, like a checkup basically. A month afterwards, there'd be another checkup, and then ad hoc from that point onwards, I think maybe a year afterwards, they'll check, maybe 3 months, it depends on the person. Yeah, and then at the end of the call, she didn't really want me to book a consultation at all. She was basically like, well, I've told you this information, let's not book anything, just get back to me when you're interested in booking your consultation. I think at that point I was like, well, no, actually, I do want to book the consultation. Like, let's book the consultation now. I want to book it in. I want to get this process started. And so essentially I had to pay a £500 deposit. Like I said before, the full amount goes towards the surgery if you decide to go ahead. If you aren't eligible, you get it refunded. And if you decide to not go ahead, you get half of it refunded. So she said that I would be emailed a payment link, and the payment link basically would just let me pay from my computer, so I wouldn't have to pay over the phone, but she said that was available if you would like to do that. And so yeah, that was it. I booked in the day. I booked an afternoon appointment to do the consultation. She emailed me the link. I paid online, and then it was the consultation day. So I work in London, and not all the time, but I work in London some days, and like in central London kind of. So I work in London, so I took the afternoon off and headed to my consultation on Harley Street. If you've never been to Harley Street, it's like this crazy, like huge Georgian like buildings, and they're all listed buildings, so they can't change them much. And it's just like, it's both like really beautiful, but also kind of, I don't know, a little bit scary. and all of these buildings are like clinics. So if you want something like, I don't know, even like dental work to like plastic surgery to eye surgeries to Botox to filler, whatever it might be, whatever kind of cosmetic procedures, there is someone on Harley Street who is an expert who is doing it for you. So if you've never been there, I definitely recommend even just like walking down the road, because it's like these crazy Georgian buildings that look amazing. And there's all these weird like clinics that do all this crazy cosmetic procedures. But anyway, you arrive and there's these big double navy doors with these big knockers, and there's a buzzer that you buzz to go to London Vision Clinic. So you press the buzzer, they buzz you in. The reception's just the first door on the left. And I don't know what they do in this place. I have no idea, like, because I was so nervous going in. I was so nervous. And then as soon as I went in, I was like, wow, I feel so relaxed. Like, they have like refreshments. You've got like coffee, soft drinks, water, obviously, like little biscuits. I don't know what they put in there, man, but I don't know if they're pumping something into the air, because I was so stressed. And as soon as I walked in, I was like, oh, like, it's super chill. I think they have like music, like really chilled music playing, and they have like something's always on the TV that's like a relaxing TV show that I think they just cycle through. But you go to the reception, you check in, they ask you to take a seat. You wait for a little while, and then a nurse basically comes to grab you, and she does the first set of tests. And a lot of these tests are similar to ones that you may have done in an optician's. So it's things like, hey, can you sit on this chair and stare at this light, and I'm going to take pictures of your eyes from different angles? Or can you stare at this light, and I'm going to make this other light spin around, and we're going to see how your eyes are. Can you look up? Can you look down? Left, right, whatever. But the worst one they do at this stage is they put you in front of this machine, and they're like, just so you know, it's going to blow some air at your eyes, and it might be quite uncomfortable. And I was like, okay. And so you sit down, you put your eyes into it, and it's like, oh. It's like the most horrifying experience. Like, they blow ice to check the pressure of your eyes. And she said that I've probably had it done at the opticians before, but I do not remember ever having that done. But if you know what I'm talking about, they do that there too. Anyway, they do all these tests. They then take you get put into a different waiting room to wait for your optometrist. After a while, my optometrist came and grabbed me. Her name was Priya. She was great. You know, it's a pretty classic optometrist situation. She checks your prescription. She asks you to read the board. Oh, I forgot to tell you, they also check the prescription of your glasses. So you have to bring your glasses. They will check the prescription of your current glasses, on top of also checking what the prescription of your current eye is, and they'll ask you for your previous prescription if you have it. And this is just because you need to have a stable prescription. They don't want to do the surgery if you're changing a lot. But yeah, so she checks your prescription. She does the normal, like, is it better with 1 or 2, 3 or 4? And, you know, I don't know if everyone's the same here, but normally I'm like, sometimes it's like, yeah, 1, yeah, 2, definitely 2. And then some it's like, don't know, maybe do it again. Like maybe 3 or 4, I don't know. Anyway, she does all of that. And then she does some other things with like eye drops. So she puts some dye into your eyes. And I didn't know at the time, but that's checking for dry eyes. Because if you have severe dry eye, that will change, you know, the risk factors for which surgeries you should do. Like LASIK gives you very dry eyes. Not that I wanted LASIK, but obviously that's a risk factor for some people if they need to do LASIK. And then she puts in these dilating drops. And she just warned you like, hey, your vision might go a bit weird soon, just so you know. But like, I'm going to be putting these in, and we're going to check your eyes when they're dilated, because then we can see to the back of the eye a lot clearer when your eyes have dilated. And so after she's put the drops in, it takes a while for them to take effect, and she starts going through this big chunky contract. And the contract explains the types of surgeries, the risks involved with like statistics specifically around each side effect and how likely you are to get them. She explains the process of the surgery and how they usually overcorrect people, and it will be a different amount depending on your demographic, because they've essentially used regression analysis to determine how much different demographics heal back to their previous prescription. So, you know, they're changing your eye's going to heal afterwards. There's a little bit of reversal that happens with that process. And so they have to overcorrect to account for that reversal to try and get you the best vision possible. Yeah, and so she's explaining this. She goes into a lot of detail. I've heard that this isn't the case with other clinics, but they really do hammer home, you know, these are the risks that are with this surgery. You know, don't take them lightly. At the same time, because they're a pretty good clinic, they also tell you, hey, like, if you do end up having these problems, we will treat them with this. If this happens during your surgery, we will treat it by doing this, setting you up to know in the worst case scenarios, we're going to help you with these specific treatments, even though they're not very likely to happen, but they may happen. So just so you're aware, these are the options you have available for you if they do happen. It was great. It's really calming to know that they have seen these problems before and they know how to handle them if they do happen. She also tells you, based on the data they have for you, the likelihood of you having essentially in one eye losing one or two or more lines of vision, of best corrected vision, which means this is the likelihood of you losing one or two lines of vision in one of your eyes that they can't correct. So it means that something's happened during the surgery and your vision's not quite as good as it used to be, and there's no way of them correcting it with glasses or anything else. And at the time, I wasn't sure exactly what this meant, but I clarified with the surgeon, and he said, this risk is actually to do with things such as scarring. So if something happens during the surgery and you heal with a scar, that's going to impact your vision, and you're not going to be able to correct that with glasses or with future enhancements of laser eye surgery. So she said for me that the risk was 1 in 1,000 for that to happen. But I suppose, they are doing laser eye surgery in your eye. Things do go wrong. But yeah, with that, my eyes started dilating, and if you've ever taken illicit substances and you've had weird vision, I realized at this point that the weird vision might not necessarily be the effects of the substances, but the dilation of your pupils. Because as this was happening, I was like, oh my God, my vision looked weird. Like things started getting very strange. And I started just cracking up as she was telling me all these serious things. And she looked at me and went, is your vision going weird now? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, it is. Anyway, she does some final checks on my eyes after my pupils have dilated, and I get taken into the waiting room for one final time to wait for one nurse to get me again to perform some of the checks that they did in the first round of checks, but now with my dilated pupils, because obviously they can see into the back of the eye much more clearly with dilated pupils. Did those checks, went to the desk, asked if there was anything else I needed to do, and they said, nope, you're all good to go. The patient coordinator will reach out in a few days. After that, I got home. I was emailed the big document that the optometrist went through with me. I got emailed that, and I was able to kind of look over it throughout the weekend. And after a few working days, my patient care coordinator gave me a call. In this call with my patient care coordinator, she kind of assumed I wouldn't have read the document, but I had read it all, which apparently isn't normal. But I was like, I want to read the whole document. I want to know all the risks. I got ChatGPT to summarize the risks for me. And she said, do I have any other questions? And I can't remember what I did, but I did have a few follow-up questions I wanted to clarify with her. And we did those clarifications. And then we started talking about the options. And so at this point, it's worth keeping in mind that there are some kind of like surgery considerations in terms of days. The clinic is usually open Monday to Friday, but because you need an appointment 24 hours after your surgery, it means that they only run surgeries usually Monday to Thursday. And because of that, Thursday is often booked far in advance because everyone wants the weekend to heal. You don't want to have to deal with the fact that you're working in the week. But I got extremely lucky because she mentioned to me that by chance, so this was on a Tuesday? No, this was on Monday. She said, well, there is technically some appointments on Sunday. Like it is quite short notice, and I probably shouldn't really tell you, but there are some appointments on Sunday if you would like to consider them. But there's also appointments, in the following weeks. And from my perspective, I had a lot of stuff coming up because it's December, and I was thinking, hey, I want to have this done as soon as possible. Could I do the Sunday appointment? Like, what would I need to do? And she said, well, how soon can you do the next surgeon consultation? And I was like, tomorrow's fine. If you can do tomorrow, let's do it. So I booked in the surgeon consultation for the next day, my surgery for the Sunday. And I had to sign a waiver to say, hey, I'm okay with the fact that there won't be a week between my consultation and my surgery. And that's just a recommendation by, I think, some kind of eye health board to say, hey, we shouldn't be pressuring people into getting the surgery. We should give them at least a week between the consultation with the surgeon and the actual surgery taking place, just to stop places from heavily pressuring people into getting the surgery as soon as possible. And that was basically it. And then the next day, went to work, and I went to the surgeon consultation in the afternoon. So I arrived, they walk into the clinic. I don't know, whatever it is in the air that makes you feel great, and like the vibes are amazing. I sat down. It wasn't long until, well, there was a little bit of a wait that day, but it wasn't too long until I spoke to my surgeon, Glenn Karp. He's a very happy, jolly man, and we spoke about my life and what I do and the things I do on a daily basis and where the risks lie for me specifically. And he went through my options, and he says, for my prescription, I can basically do whatever I want. Like I can do PRK, LASIK, or Smile. And he explained the recovery time and the pros and cons of each of them. Basically, the biggest pro for LASIK is how fast you recover. But all in all, Smile, I would say, has the best pros overall. It's just a little bit longer recovery time for the best vision. And I said, Smile. Like, I'd already decided, Smile, let's do Smile. And he said, yep, for me, no brainer. No brainer. Obviously, you want to do Smile. And yeah, so I had a few more conversations with him about kind of how things were going to work. And then he explained the surgery to me, and I went downstairs to confirm my appointment with the reception just to make sure the times were correct. I want to add in here that kind of, I left the clinic, and between this appointment and the surgery was when I actually felt the most anxious. And for me, it was strange because I didn't even feel the most anxious the day before the surgery or the day of the surgery. I felt the most anxious the days running up to the surgery before that. So, there was like 5 days or 6 days between the consultation and the surgery. And I'd say around day 3 or 4, for some reason, I was just feeling the most anxious about it then. By the day of the surgery, I wasn't feeling that bad. Like, I was actually feeling okay. And so let's do it. It's surgery day. I think there's a few things you need to remember. Firstly, you can't have wore contacts for a week. Just don't do it. Like, if you're someone who likes wearing contacts and you wear them all the time, just don't do this. Just don't wear your contacts. You're not meant to. I wear glasses all the time usually, or I used to wear glasses all the time usually, I guess. Like, what? If you wear contacts, just you can't wear them for at least, basically you shouldn't be wearing them throughout this whole process. On the day, you have to eat breakfast. And the reason for that isn't some kind of like crazy, oh, food's going to help you heal or something, but it's actually just, they're going to give you loads of medications, like pills. You need to line your stomach, otherwise you'll feel sick. You also need to make sure you have non-prescription sunglasses. In fact, you're meant to bring those to the consultation too, because when they dilate your pupils, you can't see shit. Like, on the way home, I literally looked like I was on drugs. I kept on like stumbling because I couldn't see what I was doing. I'm convinced people thought I was on crack. For the surgery, you need to bring sunglasses. It's non-negotiable. Preferably bring someone with you as well. Like, I had my partner with me. If you don't have that option, it's totally fine, but you will need to get a taxi home. Like, you need to get someone to drive you from the venue to your house. So from the clinic to your house. You need to be driven the entire way, and you cannot use the tube. They're very explicit about this. Do not use the tube. The tube is dirty. Your eyes have been cut open. Do not use the tube. Anyway, so we arrive. It's 10:20. We were asked to arrive exactly at 10:20, so I was there on the dot. 10:20, we check in. I'm almost immediately taken downstairs. A nurse kind of welcomes me into a pre-surgery room. She immediately basically checks, hey, have you eaten? Like, before we do anything, have you eaten something? Actually, the receptionist also asks, have you eaten something? She starts handing me medication. She tells me what each one is. I'm not sure if I'm going to remember them all, but I've written down the ones I do remember. So there was a paracetamol. There was some non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. It wasn't ibuprofen, but it was something like ibuprofen. She did say, have you taken any of these today? I hadn't, so that was fine, but maybe you shouldn't. There was another painkiller that included codeine, some kind of codeine combination painkiller or something else. And there was an anti-nausea drug, and there might have been something else. I don't remember. But at this point, you're kind of quite like high adrenaline, it's an intense moment for you, and you're just taking all these drugs like, oh God, okay, here's another drug, take it. Another drug, take it. And then she hands you this really cool London Vision bag. And I'm going to have to go get the bag because I don't have it with me. But I'll go into details about the bag in a moment. I don't have it with me. She explains all of the aftercare procedure, how it's going to work. And I will talk about that in the next chapter. She puts my hair into surgery nets, puts my feet into surgery nets, wipes around my eyes with antibacterial wipes, and then puts numbing drops in both my eyes. And at this point, she says, chill out, sit back. I'm going to go look at and see if the nurses and the surgeon are ready for you. I thought it was going to be ages because I've heard other people say it takes a while between this and you actually going into surgery. But she was back within a couple minutes. They say they're ready for me, and she stands me up and starts walking me to the surgery room. The surgery. Okay, so I think this is the point people are probably the most interested in. So I'm walked over to the surgery room. At this point, I'm feeling weird, like super strange. I think the combination of whatever drugs they've just given me and the anxiety, it really puts you like at like some elevated on edge feeling where you're kind of like, oof, like I'm feeling weird, like I'm not feeling okay. Not like, oh, I feel sick or anything, but more like, whoa, like spaced out, even, I don't know if it was the drugs they gave me. I didn't take an anti-anxiety drug. Some people get given that. I wasn't given that. but I was like, whoa, like this is intense. I walk in, Glenn sat there. He's asked me to sit down, asked, how are you doing? I'm like, as good as I can be, given the situation. You know, I'm about to get my eyes cut open. And he says he's just going to check my eyes, takes a look at my eyes. I think he maybe adds more drops into them at this point, but I do remember he drew on my eyes. And I didn't feel it, but I remember you could see the pressure in the eye changing as he drew on them. He said I wouldn't feel it, didn't feel it. And then he said, okay, we're going to lay you down on the surgery bed table thing and get you prepared. So I walk over, I lay down on this bed. And by the way, I can't see anything. I'm like blind, like fully can't see people, can't see anything, can't see any. I just know it's Glenn because, you know, you kind of get the vibe of like, it's the surgeon. It looks a bit like Glenn. It sounds a bit like Glenn. Can't see the nurses at all. But I know they're there. And I get sat down. She asks, are you comfortable in this position? I'm like, I think so. They put a pillow underneath your legs. They give you a little toy. They give you a little toy to squeeze as you're laid there. I got a little zebrafish thing. Yeah, and they put a blanket on you. They put a blanket over you. And at this point, you're like, oh no, it's happening. It's happening. Oh no. Oh no. But it's fine. It's totally fine. They move you under the machine. There's like almost like a tiny ring light. And there's this tiny white ring light. And he'll tape one of your eyes down. He puts more drops in your eyes. And he says, hey, okay, can you just stare at there's a little light. I want you to stare at it for a second. He then moves the light perfectly over and it starts getting closer and closer and closer to your eye until I assume it makes contact and suction with your eye. And at this point, you'll start seeing, to begin with, it's like a green orb. And as the procedure begins, the green orb turns into a green dot, like a laser LED dot. But essentially, he says, keep staring at the green dot. The green dot may drift. It does drift. It drifted loads for me. But like, he's like, just keep staring straight ahead. Even if it starts to drift, just keep staring. And to be honest, I'm like, I don't know what I was meant to do at this point. Because it's like, the laser is drifting, but you're like, do I stare at the, because it says don't stare at it, but you just keep staring ahead. Whatever. He said that I did it right. I don't know. But the laser starts to kind of like shake away a little bit as you're watching it. And at this point, you don't realize it. You don't feel anything. There's no like physical sensation. But the femtosecond laser is now carving the bottom side of the lenticule inside your eye. And you know it's happening because as soon as it gets to your actual pupil and where your vision is, you can see it fogging up. As it goes round and round and round, you start to get foggier and foggier. And as this is happening, Glenn's obviously done this many times, and he says, it's going to get foggy now. It's going to be foggy, but just keep staring ahead. Only 10 seconds left. And so now your vision's gone. It's completely foggy. I don't think I could even see the green light at this point, but you just have to keep staring ahead. It's a little bit anxiety inducing knowing that you now have essentially what is like a cataract lens, but inside your cornea. But it finishes. It doesn't take that long. I'm not going to lie. This happens so quickly. Like, it's kind of a nerve-inducing thing, but I'm explaining it in a longer form than it actually takes. And it's done. And so at that point, the lenticule is created, the cuts have been made. You felt nothing. You feel absolutely nothing. He then says, okay, great. You're doing great. Now we're going to put more drops in. He puts more drops in. I forgot to mention your eyes are clamped. They've clamped your eyes at this point. So you can't blink. You don't feel like blinking. Blinking, who needs that? There's no blinking. Like, if you're worried about that, by the way, it's not going to be. I was worried about the blinking. You can't feel, there's no feeling. You don't feel the need to blink. You don't need to blink. You don't even know that they're there. You don't, at first, you feel them going in. Within about 5 seconds, you can't feel them. And this is the part nobody has really answered. So this is, if you've watched a lot of experiences, you may not have heard this. So might be like hot off the press. Part of this procedure has a manual segment. And the manual segment involves sticking a piece of metal into the patient's eye, loosening the lower half of the lenticule using a fanning motion, and then loosening the upper half of the lenticule using the fanning motion, and then sliding it out the other side because there's 2 incisions. One of them's used to loosen it, one of them's used to pull it out as far as I can tell. And nobody has said whether or not you know that part is happening. Because most people are like, you go under, you see the green light, you get the lasers, and next thing you know, it's done. But you do know this is happening. If you know that this is happening, you know that this part's happening. And it's a little bit nerve inducing because, I mean, Glenn's great. He'll say something like, stare at the big white lights and you're going to see some shadows, but don't worry. And I'm sitting there thinking, bitch, this is not just shadows. You're sticking metal into my eye and you're pulling a piece of my eye out. I know what this is. I know how this works. And I wasn't sure if I was going to know that it's happening, but you do know. You can see the shadows aren't just vague shadows. You can see the fanning motion of the piece going back and forth. And you're like, I must stay perfectly still. I cannot move now. And like, I think he's grabbing onto your eye. So I don't think you can. And then you also can tell when they pull the lenticule out because like a brief moment of clarity comes over your eye and you can't see because you're staring at a bright light, but you can tell something was pulled out of your eye. And the last part of the procedure, the surgeon puts the lenticule over your cornea. I don't know why. I think it's to check the size to make sure that it's fully extracted, but he puts it over, sticks it over your eye, kind of, and like rubs it around a bit, maybe for healing purposes. I don't know. And then, yeah, takes it off, says, you've done that eye. That was great. Does the same thing for the next eye. And so at this point, you're like, you know, you've done both the eyes. The second eye for me, for some reason, was more anxiety inducing than the first eye. I have no idea why. But it went fine. He said I did great. He said I stayed really still, and that's like the most important part. And I'd been practicing. I don't know if this is like a useful thing. I'd been staring at walls or like LED lights in the week running up to try and see, can I stay perfectly still for like as long as possible to try and make it so that when this happens that I'm gonna not move at all. Maybe it works. He said that I was very still. Top tip. But yeah, anyway, there. So then they've taken them out, both the eyes. You're laying there, your eyes closed. They move you over. They say, they take off the clamps, obviously. They say the procedure has been done. Whenever you're ready, Stephen, you can open your eyes. And this part was insane. So I'm laying there, slowly open my eyes. My immediate response, holy shit. I literally start yelling, holy shit, like quite loud in this surgery. And they're yelling, holy shit, holy shit. To which the nurse responds, well, that's a great reaction. Anyway, yeah, they take you to a post-care room. You lay down, keep your eyes closed. You're meant to keep your eyes closed pretty much most of the first day. Like a lot of the first day, you should have your eyes closed. You lay there for a while, your eyes closed, and then the nurse comes in and does the first round of antibiotic drops in your eye. And she does the drops, and then she's like, do you have a way to get home? Do we need to order you a taxi? I was like, no, my partner's in the reception. Can you take me to him and he'll book the taxi for us? Which we did, went to the reception. My partner booked the taxi. And now this was the worst part of the whole thing. The worst part of the whole thing was the taxi ride home. And I live about an hour drive from the clinic and I get really bad car sickness, and Uber drivers aren't exactly the best at being smooth drivers. And being in central London, there's a lot of stopping and starting, turning, stopping, starting, turning, beep, beep, whatever. And I felt so nauseous. The entire journey home, I kept on being like, oh my God, I really, really can't wait to get home. And you're meant to take eye drops every 30 minutes. But I asked the nurse, can I take the eye drops in the taxi? And she was like, no, do not take them in the taxi. Unless you're stuck in traffic, do not take them in the taxi. But halfway on the way home, I was like, my eyes are feeling dry. I need to take some eye drops. Waited until we stopped at a red light, quick drops in both the eyes, and then continued. But yeah, I felt so nauseous the whole way back, not because of the surgery, but because of the driver. My partner even commented when we got home, you must have really been struggling with your eyes closed that whole time because he knows I get car sick. And I was like, yeah. And he, who doesn't get car sick, says to me, yeah, it was really bad. I was even feeling sick, so you must feel quite bad. So yeah, like that, just be aware. Maybe get a hotel. Maybe get a hotel next to the surgery. Like if you're someone who would need a really long taxi ride home or something, maybe get a hotel. Anyway, get home. I made my partner basically be my slave for the rest of the afternoon. He got me drinks. He ordered me food. You can't do, it's such a boring day. All you can do is listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts. and eat food. So make sure you have some nice food available. It's probably one of the only things that's going to give you some joy. They give you this cute little bag. It's honestly really cool. I quite like it. Like, it's a nice little bag. Okay, so you're provided with, firstly, a timer. You're gonna for the first day, you have a pretty like rigorous schedule of eye drops. I think for the first 3 hours, it's every 30 minutes you have to put hydrating eye drops in. But it could be for the first 6 hours if your eyes still feel uncomfortable. And then from that point onwards, it's every hour for the first day. And then for the second day, it kind of varies depending on how bad your eyes are. But my surgeon said every 2 hours roughly is fine. And those drops look like this. So you get this little box of refresh contacts. I've actually ran out. So I'm on halfway through day 2 and I ran out of these. But they're these little like capsules like this. And you basically twist off the top and then you would squeeze them in the eye and you can put the top back on until you finish that vial. But I finished them all. I was using them loads. But once you finished with those, you move on to, and so these are the every 30 minutes for the first day, and then every hour after that, and then every 2 hours after that, just basically whenever you need them. And then after that, you move to these ones, which are the blink intensive drops. And these are just as good, but they come in a much bigger bottle. And the reason they make you do the other ones first is just because they're more hygienic. You know, they come in tiny little vials. You're much less likely to have contamination. So those are hydration drops just whenever you need them, but quite regularly on the first day or two. And for the entirety of the first week, you have to use 2, I think these are antibiotic drops. So there's this one. Oop. And so this is 4 times a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and bedtime. And this one too. And so with any eye drops that you put in, you have to wait 3 minutes between each eye drop. So, you know, these 2 that I'm showing here, you have to put them in 4 times a day, but you just have to make sure when you've done one, you wait 3 minutes before the next. And if you're using the blink ones at the same time, you also have to wait 3 minutes between any of them. They also provide you with some tissues, which are useful just for like dabbing away the excess, because I don't know, my eyes probably look a bit weird. You're putting in so many eye drops, you just get like crusty, like powdery stuff around your eye. When I heard that, I thought it was going to be really bad, but it hasn't been that bad. You also get this little eye mask. This is for sleeping. With LASIK, you have to wear this for a week when you go to bed. It's like almost like horrible ski goggles. But for Smile, you only have to wear it for the first 2 nights. And then you get a few optional medications. So the first is, it's diclofenac sodium. It's like a strong painkiller. You can only take this 6 or 7 hours after the surgery. I didn't take it. I didn't really have any pain. If you do have extra pain afterwards, there is an extra strong painkiller. I did take this one. This is lorazepam, which is a sleeping tablet, because it's really important you sleep on the first night. So they give you a sleeping tablet to make sure you get some sleep. Finally, another optional medication is, I don't know, some kind of numbing drops. So you get these numbing drops, and these numbing drops, basically, it's similar to the pain. So if you find that like multiple hours after surgery, you're still feeling some discomfort, you can take these numbing drops to kind of help you. I was fine, but you know, I really didn't need any more drops. I was fine. Like, I didn't need it. I would say on the taxi home, I could feel stinging. I could feel a little bit of stinging in the eyes, but overall it was totally manageable. Wasn't bad at all. All I was using for most of the day, I didn't take any other painkillers. All I used was just the drops, the hydration drops. Sorted, you'll be fine. Yeah, and that's basically it in the aftercare kit. So let's talk about day 0. I spent most of the day in like a dark room in bed. I was just listening to an audiobook. So I was just listening to specifically like the Lily Allen audiobook, which it was okay. I wouldn't say it was my favorite audiobook, but you know, I needed something novel to listen to. But I kept falling asleep, and you know, luckily this goes off every 30 minutes. You have to stop and start it to put in those hydration drops, and it kept waking me up. I fell asleep about 3 times during the afternoon. I just kept falling asleep. Beep, 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 beep. It will wake you up. It's loud. I kept waking up. and putting in the drop until the evening, where I was able to go downstairs and kind of watch a little bit of TV and chat with my partner and kind of see what my vision was like. And it was pretty good. Even at that point, I could see pretty well. We had dinner. I took the sleeping tablet, did my eye drops for bedtime, and obviously at dinner time, and went to bed. Then I had slept for about 10 hours. Don't know why I was so sleepy. I actually slept really well the night before as well, but I slept for like 10 hours. Woke up late, thought I was going to be late for my appointment. And so now we're at day one. Day one, I'm rushing to get out the door because I woke up late. My appointment was at 10:15 and I wasn't allowed to get the underground, which meant that I had to get a slightly longer route to the clinic, and I had to get the overground and get a bus basically, which meant it was going to take a little bit longer. And I ended up arriving 5 minutes early, so I wasn't late at least. You know, Glenn Carp had me into his office. He asked me how I was doing. I was like, I can see really well because I could. We have a quick chat about the recovery. He asked if there was any like significant problems. Nope, none, no pain, nothing serious. To be honest, I really didn't feel pain at all. Like I had a little bit of stinging on the drive home and that was basically it. He asks me to read what line I can on the letter chart. And at this point, with both of my eyes, I could read the 2016 line, which is the line below 2020. And I was like, wow, I can read that and it's only day one. He then asks me to cover one of my eyes, like cover them both for one at a time. And it becomes apparent that actually my left eye can see that, but my right eye can't. My right eye couldn't see 2020. It couldn't see the line above 2020. It could see the line above that, I think. But my left eye could see 2016 on its own. And so it was obviously doing the heavy lifting, which isn't great because I'm pretty sure I already have a lazy eye, so thanks. But he said, actually, this is not normal. Like my left eye was healing much faster than average, which is great. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great. But my right eye was actually the normal. Like I shouldn't be able to see really well. My right eye was much more normal. At this point, he said I can drive and I can do a lot of my normal activities. There's just a few things I can't do, like contact sport and anything that makes me really sweaty, which is basically any sport. And yeah, and then I did a little bit of shopping on Oxford Street, went home, chilled out for the evening, did some cleaning and like actually cooking and stuff so that my partner wasn't doing everything because I basically made him do everything for the entire weekend. That was it. And then that evening, we were going to go to Tesco. We decided to go to Tesco. I was like, I'm going to drive. Let's do it. And my partner was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I drove and it was totally fine. So I used to get really bad starbursts, I assume, from my right eye anyway. I would say the starbursts were visible, but they weren't as bad. But one thing that was much worse than anything I ever had was the glare. The halos, the glare, much, much worse. Totally expected at this point. But yeah, I could drive the first night, was totally chill. And then we've woken up and it's day two. As you can see, I'm using a computer. I'm like totally fine. Things are okay. My vision is a bit better today. I don't have a chart. I can't like tell you exactly what level I'm at, but I'm feeling like it feels like I'm wearing contact lenses. Like I keep having this sensation of I need to take out my contact lenses because as soon as I get any dryness in my eye, it's similar to the feeling you get when you've been wearing contact lenses for a long time and they get a bit dry. But obviously there's no contact lenses in. These are just my eyes now, which is a crazy sensation. Okay, let's do last couple of things then. Price. How much did this cost me? What was the damage? So the entirety of the process costed me £5,900. To be extra clear, usually for the prescriptions that I had, I would pay £6,900, and this is including the £500 consultation fee. But the reason I paid £5,900 is because they were running a promotion where if you got the surgery before the end of 2025, you got £1,000 off the cost. So for me, that is £5,900. I've decided to do it interest-free over 3 years, which equates to about £150 a month. Would I do it again? So far, I mean, I can fucking see. I can see. Yes, I would do this again. Anyway, I think this video is going to be really long. So if you've watched this, if you watched the whole way through, I actually can't believe you've watched it because it's kind of crazy because I'm just sat here chatting shit to my camera. So thank you for listening to me ramble for probably like an hour, maybe longer than an hour. Feels like I've been here for like 2 hours rambling, to be honest. If you did like the video, if you think the video has been a useful thing for you to have watched, please give me a thumbs up, like give me a like. And if you want to know the future of kind of how this progresses for me, please do subscribe. I promise I will do an update in the future. Also, if you're interested in like cooking videos, please subscribe. Normally I post like cooking shorts on this channel of me just kind of making small videos of cooking, and I'm going to continue doing that in the new year. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully this has been useful, and thank you for watching.